Good evening and welcome for another episode of Let's Talk. Tonight we're going to have Heidi joining us. She's in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I'm super excited about this episode. Whew. It's a hot one here in Florida. We're going to talk all about women. We're going to talk about plant medicine, American Indian cultures and traditions. Good evening, William and Terry Ann. How are you? It's going to be a varied conversation, a dialogue. We're going to get to know our rock and rad star. And I'm super thrilled that she accepted this beautiful invitation. So, hi, Linda. We're going to look to see that she's on. And then we will start and invite her on. So if you have any questions tonight, this is especially powerful for women because we're coming into a time where women are recognizing and realizing their potential and learning to love themselves more and to take better care of themselves. I believe it was in Saudi Arabia, Tom and I were just discussing that women have finally been given the right to drive. That is huge. And in the United States, we take it for granted. You know, it wasn't that long ago that women not only couldn't choose, to anything about our bodies. We had no control over our bodies. We couldn't own property. We couldn't vote unless we were married, and we were valued upon the fact that whether we were single or married, and we were still not taken seriously or appreciated or valued. It's really easy to see women as, well, they do everything, but where is our true role? Where is our identity in it all? And so, this is going to be a beautiful talk. She has a lot of background that I'm really excited for her to share with us. As soon as I see her comments, I will invite her. So if you have any questions, how many ladies do we have in the house? And for the men too, because this is also just about, it's not just about women, but it's about, how maybe men have been raised to perceive women and the underlying subtleties of belief systems that men in general have held. Sometimes it's significant and conscious, and much of it, though, is actually unconscious. The idea that, men may have been told that we're just sex symbols or women are only good for one thing. There's a lot of old paradigms and a lot of old, just those standard talks, those sayings. So, Good evening, Maria. I am sweating because it is hot here in Florida, and I am on my moon cycle. So make sure you have your water and something to drink or something to snack on. Good evening, Cindy. Ooh. Little dribble of the water. So I don't know how many of you out there saw what I posted earlier. It's really about body shaming too, because as women, we've had a lot of issues with our own body image. Being on my moon cycle, this is a beautiful time to talk about it, because when I was a little girl, the very first time I got my period, we called it, I was 12. I was in school. Actually, I thought I had my period. It turned out I didn't. That was the misunderstanding. I thought I had my moon cycle, and it turned out it wasn't what I thought it was. So, because back in those days, they brought you in to hear so-and-so story. Like there was this video, we were brought to the nurse's office, the girls all sat around and watched this story about this girl who got her period, and they explained it, and it was a little bit weird and awkward. The boys might have walked by and it was like, woo-hoo-hoo, you know, they chuckled and they teased. And in the case of when I had to go to the nurse's office thinking I had my period, I got this thick pad. Does anybody remember? They were straight. It was about this big and it was huge. And I was like, oh my gosh, you couldn't hide it. It felt like you had some big diaper in between your legs. And then what ended up happening was I realized I didn't have it later. But while I received this pad from the nurse, one of my girlfriend's younger brothers, he sees this. And I'm like mortified. And it was very awkward. And then, you know, later on I got teased about it. And I was just shamed. I was embarrassed. It was all that, ooh, you know, like the things we go through at those ages, 12 years old, that feeling of, oh my gosh, what are people going to think of me? And a lot of that is because of the idea that, oh, you know, it's unsanitary, it's disgusting, it's gross, it's blood. When in reality, it's a natural cycle. It's the rhythm. It's part of our womanhood. It's what many cultures celebrate. Our culture does not. Our culture, if anything, it's embarrassing. It's gross. It's icky. It's ew. It's blood. But yet women, as women, we birth. We have babies. We give life. We shed our lining. We ovulate. We go through different cycles every single week. There's a lot that our physical bodies go through that nobody ever sees on the outside. That's exhausting, draining, regaining. It's rejuvenating, restoring, and then healing and releasing and shedding. And I can't imagine, you know, how a man perceives it, given how the men are also raised. So depending on what kind of environment and family that you're raised in, you may have a different idea about what that is and what that must be like. And to really ever put men and women on the same level bar is totally impossible, especially from a biological perspective, let alone a mental perspective or a social perspective, because they're completely different. And then go back to what is your cultural background, what is your ethnicity, your race. All of this factored in changes all the dynamics of how we're perceived as men and as women. And so I'm really, like, I've been sitting with this for a long time and really reflecting upon this as a woman. We really are. We can look at it from the perspective of energy, that divine masculine and divine feminine are coming back into this balance. And it feels like this upset for many, because we're coming into more of the feminine rising is not to overpower the masculine, nor has it ever been about that. We've been so imbalanced with so much of the patriarchy, so much of the standard norm of, you know, men in power. There's still a huge disparity between men and women and the roles that we hold and our actual gifts and what we bring. And so, for example, with women in places of authority, power, prestige, these are huge arenas for us to come back into healing, holding space for others. And it takes a very strong, courageous man to honor, respect, and hold a woman in her sacredness, to also in his own right, his own self, find his own healing in his femininity, and the masculine too, because there's a lot of expectation of men that we as women could never understand, because we're not men. We could never step into that role, nor could they step into ours. But that coming together and that understanding and seeing within ourselves that my divine masculine needs healing, my divine feminine needs healing, that we need to embrace both embody both because we're not separate. In physical form, we appear as man and woman. But on an energetic level, we have the energies of both. So as a man may not have the ability to birth a child or to give life in that respect, he still has the ability to honor and hone his divine feminine and have that compassionate, nurturing side just as much as that masculine, providing, supporting, going out and hunting, and the action, right? And so for anyone who is ever able to attend some of my workshops, I speak about chakras are just energy wheels, are just aspects of the body, okay? And our left, the majority of us, our left is our receiving side and our right is our giving. The receiving is the feminine, the giving is the masculine. And so it's all about how we present ourselves and come to the table. If we are healed, then there's no imbalance. But most of us are still seeking that healing, seeking that balance in life, in ourselves, in the way that we can relate to others from a neutral point, not a triggered, unhealed side. So I know that it's really easy for people to get upset with certain words or situations or want justice and equality. But really the healing is about the individual because it's unique, it's personal. And is that her? I thought I saw a heart. And so we have to show up wherever we're at and be open to the ability to heal. And there she is. And when we open to that ability to heal, magic happens. But it's only when you yourself are willing to show up and do your own internal work. Nobody can do it for you. Men and women, we are meant to intertwine and to work with one another and to give and receive. And we do have different roles and gifts that we bring to the table. As women, I know for myself that we came into this incarnation as a woman to be the householders, as Yogi Bhajan would say, which means that we are more aware of things on a certain level to which we are meant to hold that space, not to get upset and say people are supposed to be a certain way. Same thing with men. We can't anticipate and assume that anybody reads minds. This is why communication is so key and why the dialogue next needs to occur. So without further ado, I'm going to add Heidi Ann. Here she is, okay, and she's going to have this beautiful dialogue because it needs to happen. This is what is going on in the world today, is women need to not only commune with each other, support one another, but also hold that space for the men in their lives, because even the men who have been trained that you need to be strong, you need to be the provider, have been overly assumed to not have emotion or show emotion or to be vulnerable or emotional. And so we have to also hold that space for one another and wherever we're at.